Right, I'm going to move on. And Martin, I'm going to ask you, first of all, on the costs at the moment. Where do we stand in terms of costs versus traditional CPEN? That's a question I think we've seen from 2 or 3 people.
Firstly, if you just indulge me for 1 second, so I can cut, because I got thrown under a truck politely earlier on. I just want to come back on that very quickly. I actually agree with Brian's comments about the scaling of these projects, and actually for us, this is why our Poland facility is so important, because we can use our knowledge from that facility to know what's actually required to get 10,000 tons of output from a facility. So it's not like we're building a farm and hoping it gives us 10,000 tons. We're reverse engineering it back from 10,000 tons based on what we're doing in Poland. So that's actually an agreement with you, Brian. So moving on to the costs versus traditional, and I've been looking at the questions that have been coming in from the audience as well, and there's questions about price points and what level price do you need to be able to sell at to make land-based profitable. So I think a really critical point to make here, and Matt, you touched on it in your intro, is that this new generation of land-based salmon farms are large scale. Okay, they're large scale, so they can benefit from an economy of scale, and we can get the production cost down. So it's not that, for example, Pure Salmon is expecting or needs to sell at a premium price over market price. We fully expect that we should be able to sell at a premium price, but that's a slightly different topic. We don't need to. So it's a case of chipping away at the cost of production to get it that bit lower than the open net pens through a variety of different reasons, but also this really critical topic about moving your production to where your consumer is, because of course that takes a significant amount of cost out of the equation. So if you're not flying fresh salmon halfway around the world, you're just trucking it for 4 hours. That totally changes the dynamic, probably more meaningfully than clipping a little bit of improved FCR or something like that. So I think that is a key part of the land-based story that sometimes gets a little bit forgotten. I mean, it's obviously much more relevant to those projects that are based near their consumers, and of course that's not the model that everybody has, but a number of people do, and certainly it's our model to be located in the local communities.
Right, and Martin as well. Also, just to address your earlier comment, just the way that we perhaps frame the questions. But I'd like also to take it from a different perspective. I've spent a lot of time in the last week looking at the Atlantic Sapphire investor presentations. I think one of the key things that stuck out when I reread one of those is how they see their model de-risking as the volume goes up. So the more tanks you have in production, they kind of say, well, if we had a one-off event in one of our facilities, the bigger we are, the smaller percentage we're affected by. I guess that's you have the same risk assessment.
So look, we take a fairly unique approach to this, I think, in the sense that we are a global company and we have a global rollout. So our vision is to have 260,000 tons of production at multiple facilities around the world. And it's been a stated objective of ours that they will either be 10 or 20,000 tons. And we think that's the sweet spot between economies of scale, but also not having too much risk in one facility. Not just necessarily around production risk, but also around market penetration risk. We don't want to be a significant part of the sales of any one market, or exposed to other conditions in a market. So I think there's a number of mechanisms at work, and certainly, for example, the modularization of facilities, so breaking them up into effectively 6 or 8 smaller biosecure systems is one of the ways to help manage that risk.
Great, thanks. We've got a lot of questions, and we won't get through them all. I'm going to take some of the topics that we've had multiple questions on the same thing. Definitely, there's a lot of questions about pricing, and I'm going to, Roy, I think I'm going to get you to do that one. What do you make of the prices that RAS farmers need to become profitable? Because there's a lot of premium prices built into the ROI model. If you could just go for that one.
Yeah, well, if you look at when we started looking at it, it was insane cost to get the money back from a RAS system. But it's driven in 2 directions, actually. Obviously, the technology and the knowledge is been driving the forecast of the prices down. We have seen cases where the combination of where you put up your facility is obviously going to have an impact of the total cost. If you're going into a country where the power prices or electric prices is high, it's going to drive a cost up. If it's going to be a logistic issue to transport or getting feed to the site and all of that. So it's very sensitive when we look at it, and we have seen cases where they're talking about a cost below what we see in average the last year in the conventional farming. And we have seen them being 10 to 15, 20% beyond the average cost of the conventional farming in Norway. I think that the price we have seen in the market for the salmon is obviously going up and down, and the latest price in US for the salmon now is beyond the cost of producing in Norway. So there are some challenges here. But the latest and the scalability is obviously going to have a huge impact. I mean, if you have a 10,000 ton and you will achieve 7,500, you will still make money. But if you have a 5,000 ton and you only do 4,500, you will never make money. And that type of calculation. But everything is going the right way with the cost of producing in the RAS. But it's not only the technology you need to focus on. You need to actually understand the total impact of having that facility where you put it. Not only transporting to the market, but cost of labor, knowledge of people, logistic issues, and so on and so on. So it's a big difference between the cases out there.